Hey everybody, how's it going? Aaron Rift here from NoDQ.com to give you my thoughts on the WWE B-PPV events from 2008. 2008 was an interesting year in WWE history. I guess you could say it was a transitional year. The company had gone from standard definition to high definition. Also, this was the year that WWE went from being TV 14 to TV PG. Now, a lot of people look at that as a negative, but overall, 2008 was a really solid year for pay-per-view events, especially the first half of the year, but even the second half of the year had some memorable moments as well. So let's take a look here at these pay-per-view events. First up, No Way Out 2008 from Las Vegas, Nevada. I was there in person for this one. I wanted to see the Elimination Chamber match in person, and I was not disappointed. I had a really fun time at this show, and watching back on the pay-per-view recently, it holds up. It is definitely one of the better WWE pay-per-views in the past decade. So I would recommend checking out this pay-per-view if you haven't seen it, and it's even worth watching a second time. You had the two Elimination Chamber matches. The first one was the SmackDown Elimination Chamber match, which was all about Batista and Undertaker wrapping up their storyline, which had gone on for about a year. And I love the finish of this match. I thought it was brilliant. You had both guys on the outside. Batista had Undertaker on his shoulders, trying to throw him into the cage. Undertaker used the momentum of the cage to back themselves up over the top rope. They literally flipped back into the ring, right into perfect position for the Tombstone Piledriver. I thought this finish was so cool. Great match. You had MVP getting thrown off the top of the pod. Lots of cool spots. This one was a lot of fun. You had Ric Flair beating Mr. Kennedy to keep his career. And in the title matches, you had Edge beating Rey Mysterio. Mysterio was injured, and he would be gone for several months. And after the match, you had the return of the Big Show, and they set up the big angle for Big Show versus Floyd Mayweather, with Mayweather punching the Big Show and busting up his nose. This was really well done. And then you had John Cena versus Randy Orton. The funny thing about this match was that it was really nothing special, but being there live, the atmosphere was just amazing for this. I mean, you had Randy Orton putting John Cena in a headlock, and the place was going nuts. They were hot for the entire match. The crowd was really hot for this entire show, which also helped. You had Randy Orton purposely getting himself disqualified, which normally I'm not a big fan of this, but because this show was sold on the Elimination Chamber matches, and this match was designed to build up the WrestleMania match, I was okay with it. And then the main event, the WWE Raw Elimination Chamber match, I enjoyed this one a lot. You had Triple H in there, Shawn Michaels, Jeff Hardy, Umaga, Chris Jericho, JBL. This was another really strong Elimination Chamber match. The only thing I wasn't crazy about was Triple H winning. I felt that Jeff Hardy had a ton of momentum, but it wasn't meant to be on this night for Jeff Hardy to get the WrestleMania title shot. The crowd really wanted to see Jeff Hardy win. So, that was a little bit of a letdown, but the match itself was tremendous. And, a lot of people debate which one was better. I mean, it's really hard to say. But overall, this was definitely a show I would recommend watching. And next up we have Backlash. This pay-per-view was fine. I think it was an average pay-per-view. It wasn't one of the better WWE pay-per-views of 2008, but I still would not say it was a terrible pay-per-view. The main event was a fatal four-way. Triple H winning the WWE title from Randy Orton in a fatal four-way with JBL and John Cena also in the match, although they were barely in it. They were in it for a short period of time, and most of the match it was Triple H versus Randy Orton. And this was not quite as good as the Fatal 4-Way from the previous year's Backlash, but it was still a very solid main event. Undertaker beating Edge, having him in the triangle choke, and Edge bleeding from the mouth. This was fine, and this was all part of the storyline, the ongoing storyline between Undertaker and Edge. And you had Shawn Michaels versus Batista. To me, this was an interesting storyline, but one I really didn't get all that much, because I know that you wanted Batista to have some kind of conflict with Shawn Michaels, and yes, he was mad about Shawn Michaels retiring Ric Flair. But then in this match, you did this angle where Shawn Michaels faked a knee injury in order to win the match, which is a very heelish thing to do, but it did add to the conflict between Batista and Shawn Michaels. I just felt the whole storyline was weird with Shawn faking an injury when he's a babyface, but that was really my only complaint about it. Yeah, Chris Jericho's the special referee, and this was starting to build up the whole Shawn Michaels-Chris Jericho feud. So the 3 matches I mentioned, I guess, are worth checking out. And moving on here to Judgment Day 2008. Another decent pay-per-view, but I wouldn't say it was a great pay-per-view. Main event, Triple H defending the title against Randy Orton in a steel cage match. Something to note, this was the first pay-per-view where Randy Orton came out to the Voices theme song. You had Undertaker and Edge once again on pay-per-view. This time you had Undertaker winning by countout. Basically what happened was he was stripped of the title for using the triangle choke on Edge, and the title was vacant going into this match. Undertaker wins by countout, but then Vicky says that the title cannot be won in a countout. And this was funny because Vicky got so much heel heat. I mean, it was unbelievable how much the crowd hated her. They were just booing her out of the building. So, you know, this was more fun to watch than the actual match itself. And then the real show stealer on this pay-per-view was Shawn Michaels versus Chris Jericho. This was before Jericho made his heel turn, but this was planting the seeds for that whole feud, and this was excellent. So definitely worth checking out because it was the beginning of the Michaels-Jericho saga. You had JBL versus John Cena in the opening match, which to me was nothing special. I mean, I dreaded the idea of Cena and JBL feuding yet again. I had already been sick of seeing John Cena versus JBL, so for them to feud again, I was like, whatever. And it's really nothing special watching it again. Next up, we have One Night Stand in San Diego, California. I thought that this was a really entertaining pay-per-view. Usually, I feel the stipulation pay-per-views, especially the ones like Extreme Rules, are entertaining because you have all the stipulation matches and it keeps the show entertaining from start to finish. And it kicked off with Jeff Hardy versus Umaga, Falls Count Anywhere. I like the moment when they're backstage and Jeff Hardy uses the stairs rail to do a clothesline onto Umaga. I thought that that was really cool. Although the finish of this match was a bit over the top. They were on the outside, and Jeff Hardy hit a swanton from the top of the production truck. Problem is, you couldn't see him actually do it. There was a trash can or something blocking the view because they had crash pads on the other side. And the problem here too is that when the camera panned around, somebody did not move the crash pad completely out of the way of the camera, so you could tell obviously that they did the spot with a crash pad. So yeah, it was a bit goofy, but you know, it was a fun match to watch. You had a Singapore Cane match. You had John Cena and JBL in a First Blood match, and Cena won by making JBL bleed through the mouth. Kind of lame, but you know, I actually think that this was the last First Blood match in WWE. I don't think they did another one after this because a couple months later they did the ban on blood as the company went PG. You had Batista versus Shawn Michaels in a stretcher match. This was wrapping up their feud, and I thought that this was a very entertaining match. And you had Chris Jericho coming out and trying to coach Shawn Michaels, and of course this was building up their feud, and this was also wrapping up the Michaels-Batista feud. Triple H versus Randy Orton in a Last Man Standing match, a rematch from the 2007 No Mercy pay-per-view. Unfortunately, Randy Orton got hurt in this one. He tried to go for the RKO and Triple H reversed it and sent him over the top, and Randy Orton landed badly and he got injured, and they had to stop the match. Basically just go straight to the finish. And afterwards, the thing I found entertaining about this was, you know, even though he got hurt, the crowd was giving Randy Orton the standing ovation, and he was still yelling at the fans. He did not break character. He would still yell and chew out the fans as he was walking to the back in tremendous pain just because he did not want the fans cheering him. So I really got to give props to Randy Orton for staying in character and just somehow managing to deal with the pain and keep the fans booing him. I mean, that was amazing. And then the main event, Edge and Undertaker in a TLC match. the usual shenanigans with the edge heads coming out and Chavo and all the interference. Undertaker taking the big bump off the top of the ladder, going through the tables, and Edge winning the title. And Undertaker vanished, or whatever, being sent away from WWE. What is the word? Banished from WWE. I don't know why I say vanished. I guess the idea was he would vanish. But yeah, of course, we all know that Undertaker would be back a couple months later. But this was to slowly build up to the SummerSlam match. But overall, I thought that this was a very entertaining show. Next up, we have Night of Champions. To me, this was an okay pay-per-view, but maybe the weakest WWE pay-per-view of 2008. Definitely towards the bottom of the list. Triple H getting his win back from WrestleMania 22, beating John Cena in the WWE title match. Edge versus Batista. Edge retaining the title with the usual shenanigans. You had Ted DiBiase and Cody Rhodes forming their tag team. It was Cody and Hardcore Holly as a team, and then, of course, Cody turns on Hardcore Holly and joins up with Ted DiBiase. And then you had Kofi Kingston winning the IC title from Jericho. So there were a few memorable moments on this pay-per-view, but nothing too noteworthy. It was definitely one of those pay-per-views where if you missed it, you didn't miss much. Next up, we have the Great American Bash 2008, which has the distinction of being the last WWE pay-per-view until the PG era became official. So this was really the last pay-per-view of the TV-14 era, although really WWE had started toning down before this. And, I mentioned them toning down. One of the matches on this show was JBL versus John Cena in a parking lot brawl. The build-up for this match, the infamous build-up, was when John Cena spray-painted JBL is poopy on JBL's limo. This was the build-up for this match. So that was really the sign. When they did that angle, something felt like WWE was trying to appeal more to kids. And sure enough, right after this pay-per-view, they made the official going to PG announcement. This match was actually a little bit hardcore, as the last pay-per-view of the TV-14 era goes. You had both guys trying to essentially kill each other. You had JBL setting the car on fire with John Cena in there. You had John Cena putting JBL in the car and then ramming him with a forklift. And then you had the finish where JBL threw John Cena through the glass windshield of the car, and John Cena was cut and bleeding all over the place. So this was kind of a train wreck. I mean, it was interesting to see John Cena job to JBL here, but I guess they were trying to build JBL up for CM Punk at SummerSlam. So yeah, this was, I guess, an entertaining spectacle. Kind of a train wreck. You had Triple H retaining the title against Edge, the WWE title, and this was more about the storyline between Edge and Vicky Guerrero, and the fact that Edge was caught making out with the wedding planner Alicia Fox. And the finish for this match, you had Vicky come out and go after Alicia, and then you had Edge accidentally spearing Vicky. So this was fun. I mean, this was definitely a fun storyline. The match itself was good, but I wouldn't say it was a great match or anything like that. It was more about the storyline. And probably the biggest moment on this pay-per-view was during Shawn Michaels versus Chris Jericho. This was right after the Jericho heel turn, when Jericho threw Shawn Michaels into the Jeritron 5000 and messed up his eye. And in this match, Jericho elbowed Shawn Michaels in the eye, and Shawn Michaels started bleeding all over the place. Now, I guess the story here is that Shawn bled too much, or something happened in this match where he was just bleeding too much, and at that point Vince made the call to ban blood for good in WWE, at least banning intentional blood. So this has the distinction of being the last WWE match where somebody purposely did a blade job when they were allowed to. It's just that I guess Vince didn't want blood anymore after seeing this. But it helped tell an amazing story. I mean, that's the thing. With the blood, it really enhanced the storyline here between Jericho and Michaels, and added to the drama. And he had Jericho basically pounding on Shawn Michaels' eye until the referee stopped the match. So I mean, it had a very realistic feel to it. This was extremely well done. So overall, I mean, this was an entertaining pay-per-view. You had Finlay and Hornswoggle going for the tag title, so, you know, once again, a sign that the company was moving towards PG. You had Shelton Benjamin beating Matt Hardy to become the U.S. champion, which was a good match. So, you know, I would recommend this pay-per-view. I thought it was one of the better Great American Bashes, that's for sure. Next up here, we have Unforgiven 2008, the first B pay-per-view of the PG era. This pay-per-view is noteworthy for the the championship scramble matches. I have Elimination Chamber on the brain because those matches were awesome. But yeah, these were the championship scramble matches, which I thought it was an interesting concept, and it made for an entertaining pay-per-view. But the one thing that bugged me was when they would announce the interim champion as the current WWE champion. It just didn't sound right. You know, when Brian Kendrick at one point was the current WWE champion, it was just confusing, and you know, it just didn't sound right, like I said. So to me, that was the one big negative, but I know a lot of people liked these matches. WWE never really did it again after this. But, you know, maybe one day they will. I mean, it definitely makes this a unique pay-per-view for the three championship scramble matches. You had Matt Hardy winning the first one to win his first world title, the ECW Championship. You had Triple H retaining in the WWE title scramble match, and Jeff Hardy coming very close to winning the title, but no cigar. And this would be the ongoing theme here, with Jeff Hardy coming so close to winning the title, but not close enough. And then you had Shawn Michaels versus Chris Jericho in an unsanctioned, no-holds-barred match. This was awesome. This was a great match. I mean, Shawn Michaels and Chris Jericho, that's really all you need to say. But they did so much crazy stuff with the tables and just having a very violent match in a PG environment, about as violent as you can have. And this was great. I mean, it's definitely one of the all-time great matches from these two, so you definitely check that one out. And the other championship scramble match for the world title, they did this storyline here where CM Punk was defending the title, but in a backstage segment, he was attacked by Randy Orton. He was given the punt, and he was deemed unable to compete. To me, this was a bit lame for CM Punk to lose the world title in this fashion. But at the same time, I like the angle they did with Chris Jericho taking his spot in the match and winning the title after losing to Michaels earlier on the show. So I thought this was a clever storyline and a strong way to end the pay-per-view. So I give this show a thumbs up. Really, really fun show to watch. And next up, we have the No Mercy pay-per-view from Portland, Oregon. This match was all about the main event. Chris Jericho and Shawn Michaels in a ladder match. Another excellent performance from these guys. You know, this was the feud of the year. This was perhaps Chris Jericho's best year. He completely reinvented himself. And this is another one that's on the all-time highlight reel of matches that I would recommend checking out. And you had a lot of solid matches on this pay-per-view as well. You had Triple H and Jeff Hardy for the WWE title. Excellent match. Jeff Hardy coming just short once again of winning the title. But, you know, tons of near falls, and the crowd really thought Jeff Hardy was going to win here. Once again, I mean, this was an ongoing theme here going back to No Way Out. Unfortunately, he did not win it, but, you know, really fun stuff. And even Big Show and Undertaker, you know, I forgot to mention from the previous pay-per-view, they did this angle where Undertaker was going to get revenge on Vicky, and Big Show was going to make sure that Vicky got taken out. But then Swerve, Big Show turns heel, you know, heel turn number 50 or whatever, onto The Undertaker. And at the time, I was dreading the idea of this feud, but, you know, these guys actually had a very strong match here. And that's the thing about Undertaker in 2008. I mean, this was perhaps his best year as well. You know, I mentioned Jericho, but Undertaker really had a strong 2008, and he even was able to manage good matches with the Big Show. And Big Show ended up knocking out Undertaker, which I felt was a good finish if this feud was going to continue. And I also did not believe Big Show was going to get the best of Undertaker. So for that to happen was also a positive. And I thought that this was a fairly strong pay-per-view based on the strength of those top 3 matches. And moving on here to Cyber Sunday, I take back what I said earlier about Night of Champions being the weakest pay-per-view. This might have been the weakest WWE pay-per-view of 2008. Really the only match that I would say was worth watching. You know what? Undertaker and Big Show, they had the last man standing match. And once again, this was a solid match from these two. And maybe the best match these guys had against each other. All the more reason to praise The Undertaker for an amazing 2008 because he was able to get a very good match out of the Big Show. Batista and Chris Jericho with Steve Austin as the special guest referee. You had Randy Orton and Shawn Michaels as the other 2 options. Austin, of course, won. Big surprise there. This was a fun match. This was entertaining. You had Randy Orton trying to interfere. You had Shawn Michaels coming out and getting involved. And Batista winning the title. Entertaining stuff here. One bad thing about doing this whole Cyber Sunday thing is you had Triple H versus Jeff Hardy. Jeff Hardy won the voting again. So once again, Jeff Hardy comes up short against Triple H. And it was getting ridiculous at this point. I really felt maybe they should have pulled the trigger by this time. But it wasn't meant to be yet. They kept dragging it out. And we'll get to that more in a few minutes here. And then everything else was pretty forgettable. You had Honky Tonk Man appearing on this show. You had Santino Marella doing the whole honka-meter thing with the IC title. So no surprise here. Honky Tonk Man comes out. Didn't really do anything, but it was cool to see him. So whatever. That was the one interesting novelty part of this pay-per-view. But overall, forgettable show. One you could easily skip over. And then finally, Armageddon 2008. Oh, one more thing I wanted to note about No Mercy and Cyber Sunday. I think it was No Mercy. I think that was the first pay-per-view where they started using the WWE Universe buzzword. And that buzzword just bugs me. I find it to be annoying personally. And that's the first pay-per-view I noticed them using it, was that No Mercy pay-per-view. So I just wanted to throw that out there as well. Also, the other negative about these pay-per-views, there is a negative in addition to the whole PG change, but also when Jim Ross was no longer the Raw play-by-play announcer. At least he was still on SmackDown, but once Michael Cole was the Raw announcer, the quality dropped a little bit with the Raw announce team, and to me that was one negative that was noticeable with these pay-per-views. But anyways, Armageddon 2008. The big story about this pay-per-view was Jeff Hardy finally, after all the teases, after all the times where he came short, he finally won the WWE title in the triple threat match. Of course, it was Edge who he beat, not Triple H. And Triple H essentially had the match won, and then Jeff Hardy hits the Swanton and makes the pin. So Triple H couldn't even do the job for Jeff Hardy, whatever. But Jeff Hardy got his big win here, finally, after all that time. And then, of course, he loses a month later, but, that's a whole other story. And then, John Cena versus Chris Jericho. Good match, but predictable. Once John Cena won the title back, we all knew he wasn't going to lose it right away. And, of course, he beats Jericho here. Jericho losing in his final match of 2008, but still, what a year for Jericho. Batista versus Randy Orton, good match. They hyped it up big time as these guys finally settling their score from Evolution, but of course they would have more matches after this. This was one of Orton's first matches back after being injured. Good stuff. And CM Punk versus Rey Mysterio in the IC title tournament, #1 contendership match. This was good, but everything else was pretty forgettable, pretty standard. So that'll wrap it up for my thoughts on the 2008 WWE pay-per-view events. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. What were your favorite moments, your favorite matches, your least favorite moments, your least favorite matches. YouTube.com/NoDQCAW. And stay tuned to NoDQ.com for the very latest in the world of wrestling. See you next time.